Proudly supported by Superior Engineering, Diesel Conversions Australia, and in part by.
Before we go and slap a turbo on a motor with 400,000 Ks, I want to do just a general health check. Now the standard injector pump has some paint marks on it, which makes me believe that someone has played around with that. The motor is definitely not idling right, and it's got a little bit of a tappity noise to it. Now TD42s generally are pretty tappity. Coal is definitely very tappity, but what I want to do is go in and do the valve clearance. After I do the valve clearance, we'll go ahead and try and play around with the fuel pump, because you can actually advance and retard the timing on the fuel pump a little bit. So we'll play around with that, see if we can make it a bit happier and see if we can get this thing running right. The other issue that we have is when I bought this thing, it was overheating quite badly. We pulled out of the guy's driveway, drove like 5 minutes down the road, and the temp gauge shot right up, which he actually did warn me about as well. Now, what I did is I pulled the thermostat out of the housing and we just ran this motor with an open flow. After that, it drove great. Obviously, it wasn't getting hot. It had really good flow of water. I probably should be checking the water pump as well, because inside of that water pump might be quite corroded. So it'll be interesting to see what we can do with this thing. I'm pretty confident that it is a good motor and a good runner, and we can slap a turbo on it. But I don't want to jump the gun too quickly. Go ahead and order a turbo and find out that there's something wrong with this motor. First things first, I want you guys to hear it in its current state, see if we can get it a little bit better. So I'll start her up. The battery's dead, so I'm gonna have to jump it, but we'll start her up. You guys can listen to how she's running at the moment. I can definitely hear that the thing is a little bit low on the idle side. Now the tachometer isn't working, and that is actually because this wire here is broken. So I need to fix that first so that we can go ahead and adjust the idle on the fuel pump there. The fuel pump's down there, and you can see with the yellow marks that I reckon it's actually been out and either been rebuilt or possibly replaced with a second-hand unit. Either way, someone has definitely had that fuel pump off, or at least played around with it. So I'm also going to have to try and retard or advance the pump and just see if we can make this thing sound a little bit better. The other thing it could easily be is old injectors. So we might even have to replace the injectors. I haven't bought anything major except for like a full service kit, so oil, filter, all that sort of stuff, because you'd be amazed at how much oil can actually quieten up a motor as well. We're definitely going to try all the easiest stuff first before we dive in and do like injectors and stuff like that. It's always my advice, if you've got stuff that you want to fix, start at the easiest and cheapest thing and work your way forward. Now, first things first, I need to fix this plug here. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that, see if I can get the idle back on the dash, and then I'll adjust the pump to suit. Actually pretty excited about this motor, guys, because the old TD42 will always have a place in my heart. Right, so I've gone ahead and I've adjusted the idle up. Now, the idle was a little bit low. I've got it sitting at about 650, 700 at the moment. I'm quite happy with how it's sounding. I also played around with the pump, advancing and retarding it a little bit. Wasn't making too much of a difference to the noise, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit the next objective, which is the valve lash. Because this motor has 400,000 Ks, a lot of these valves will be out of adjustment unless someone's gone ahead and done it before, but I doubt it. If you do have an old motor at home, I definitely recommend doing a valve adjustment. It's not too hard to do, and it's a good way to make sure that your motor is gonna stay at peak performance and keep running for longer. The other thing is inside this tappet cover here, it is quite sludgy, so I will be cleaning all that out. I'll be cleaning as much as I can off the actual valves as well as I go ahead. It's a really dirty job, but it's got to be done. I'm curious to see how far out of adjustment these things are. I'd say it's going to be pretty far, but I need to get this motor into top dead center so we can start. We'll look up the firing order, look up the specs. We'll get this valve set adjusted. Right, all the valves are done. You can see they're nice and tight. I've also turned the motor over to make sure that none of the valves are too tight. So you really should, if you're doing this at home, roll it over about 3 or 4 times, make sure none of these valves are going to kiss the top of the pistons, because if you have them too tight, it'll actually stop. But if you try and start the car, you're going to put a hole in the piston. So on a TD, the feeler gauge size is a 0.35 millimeters. So I've gone through, double checked that they're all nice and tight. So we're ready to whack the tappet cover back on. See, in the tappet cover, we've just got like heaps of really thick sludge-like stuff. So I need to clean all that out. Once I clean all the oil out of there, I'm actually going to go ahead and paint the tappet cover while it's off. I think that'll be a good idea. I'm pretty certain I've got some red sitting around. So I'll go ahead, whack a rag on this for now, clean that out, paint it, whack it back on, then I can start it up and then I can do a service. Right, that tappet cover looks beautiful. I'm gonna let that bake in the sun for a little bit before I handle it. I'm actually gonna go ahead and service the motor now. So I'm gonna get under it, I'm gonna drop the oil into the container. We've got 2 oil filters on a Patrol, so need to change them over as well. Because it's an older motor, I'm gonna go a step up and go the 20W60, a little bit thicker. I've always ran this in coal and it was always really good. And then 2 Cooper oil filters to go on. I wanna get this done so I can quickly whack that tappet cover back on and fire up. I'm pretty excited to see that tappet cover on here. I do have plans to paint the car, so don't stress about the blue and the red clashing, because I know it's gonna look a little bit weird, but it'll all make sense when we paint the car. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and drop this oil out of this beast. It probably hasn't been serviced in a long time. Oh yeah, she's pretty bloody black. Righto, we are looking pretty good. As you can see, we've got the tappet cover in and that looks unreal. I'm so happy with that red. I actually bought that red to do the 4J, but then we ended up buying the whole tappet cover, so it was nice to finally use that paint for something. Now she's fully serviced. I've done the oil filters. I've filled it up with oil, fuel filter and air filter, so she is just about ready to go. I'm not gonna put the radiator in yet because the radiator I think is actually kaput. When you kind of touch all here, it's just crumbling apart. So I think I'm actually going to get a new one, especially with the cooling issues that this thing has. So I'm gonna jump in the car and start this up. Now, one thing that you really should do when you start up a car after changing the oil and filter is you should cycle the key a bit. Now, a lot of cars will have an oil light on the dash there. I've actually got an oil pressure gauge, so I'll be reading both of those. But what you do is you cycle the key on and off until that oil light turns off. If it doesn't turn off, then you have a problem or an airlock or something like that. I've changed a lot of oil in my lifetime. I've never had one with an airlock to this day, and I never pre-fill the oil filters. But it's always good practice to do stuff like that, so I definitely recommend doing it. Now, I've got to make sure that nothing's going to get caught in this fan, and I've got to make sure that all my stuff like this is out of the engine bay, and I am ready to rumble. Righto, I had really good oil pressure, it was about 60 PSI, so I was happy about that. Took a while to get the air out of the system just because I changed that fuel filter over there. It's definitely still got that pump sort of tick. Possibly is an injector. I'd actually just order new injectors anyway. It won't hurt to do them. So that's actually going to be it for today. I might come back tomorrow. I'm going to try and find a radiator tonight, see if I can pick one up. I know that there's a few used ones on Marketplace for sale at the moment. It's now the next day and we are back to sort the cooling system out on this thing. Now, if you guys remember, when I bought this thing, it was cooking. It got bloody hot on the dash. The needle actually went right to the hot mark, which isn't the best to do, but in the ad, it actually did say that this thing was overheating as well. Now, what we did is we took the thermostat out and it has just had an open flow of water, so there's no thermostat controlling the water temperature in there at the moment, so it didn't get hot after that. But that doesn't mean that there isn't an underlying issue somewhere else. When I pulled the thermostat out, it was actually seized shut with like metal shavings and rust. So it makes me think that there might be a little bit of corrosion going on inside the motor. Now, one thing we really need to check is the inside of the water pump. The impellers on the TD42, they actually disintegrate and kind of fall apart, which makes me think that the impellers rotted out and it might have blocked the thermostat, and that's started our overheating issues. Last night, I bought a secondhand TD42 radiator because ours is kind of crumbling apart. So I'll put that in as well, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have a really good cooling system. Righto, the second-hand radiator is all fitted up with the fan shroud. Everything is back together. We've got the brand new thermostat in, which I think was the problem with this overheating. I think that thermostat actually seized up. The other thing is the overflow cap here. It actually has a hole in it right there, if you can see. So that wouldn't have been working at all. And it's also missing this bottom straw here. So I've had to go ahead and just drill out a cap for now, and I've stuck a hose in there. So that'll actually work just for now, and we'll fix that up later on. We've got a brand new radiator cap. I haven't filled it up yet. I'll do that in a second. And I've also resealed up that water pump down there. Now, the good news is the water pump looked brand new, and so did the motor inside. There was no corrosion whatsoever, which I'm stoked about. So now all that's left to do is to whack some water in. Got some coolant behind me. We'll put that in, turn the heater on, we'll run it through, we'll sort of bleed it to the best of our ability. We'll let it idle for a while. I don't actually have a water gauge on there yet. That'll probably be on the next to-do list, but the gauge definitely worked the last time I was driving it. So I'll be keeping an eye on the gauge. I'll fill it up with water, get the coolant in it. Once it's all bled, we'll be taking it for a test rip to see if she doesn't get hot. So I'll start by putting the coolant in. This is just some cheap stuff that I got from Burson's. Then want to put the expensive stuff in just in case we have to drop this out again. I'm just going to put the whole lot in. I'm not even going to read the bottle. That took a long time, just like most old diesels do, but she is all bled as far as I can tell. I just had to run that for like half an hour. I was revving the crap out of it. A quick way to tell if the thermostat is open is that if both hoses are hot, and both mine are red hot. So we are ready to go. The temp on the dash didn't get above halfway. It wasn't even close to halfway. So it's a good sign that we are on a win, but the drive will be the limiting factor. Couldn't keep my main camera up, so you guys are on the GoPro now, but she is driving super nice. The tapping noise is a little bit intermittent, like it goes away and then it comes back. So I am thinking that it will be an injector. Gearbox feels super tight, clutch feels good. I think the throwout bearing is a little bit noisy though, but the clutch itself feels really good. This feels tight. Steering feels super tight, brakes are good. We're not getting hot at all. I think the temperature's actually dropped. That's foot flat. It's so slow. We need a turbo on this ASAP. It's actually unbelievably slow. Ready? Second gear, foot flat. You can see there, that is how she ran the whole time. Where before, even after a 5-minute drive, it would sneak right up to that hot mark. So I'd say that we are golden. This thing is running good. You can see that we're idling about 25, 30, but then as soon as you rev it, it's going straight up to 60. I'm pretty confident that we have fixed the GQ Patrol and we can move on to the next stage of the build. Obviously, the TD42 naturally aspirated is extremely slow, so that's something that I want to address pretty well straight up. So I think I'll go ahead and order a turbo. As for the rest of the build, I don't really know where we're going to take this. I kind of do think that we should do a grassroots budget build on the channel. I do love my budget builds and it's more relatable to you guys as well. The GU is a nice build, but it's just, you know, it's a bit far-fetched and it's a bit out there. So I think if we get back to the grassroots of doing a super cheap budget build on the GQ, but make it super nice at the same time, I think that will be really enjoyable for everyone to watch. But if you have any ideas, I'd really love it if you dropped a comment below. Let me know what I should be doing because I have no idea. Also, I'm going to be at the Outback Equipment Open Day on the 2nd of September. So if you want to come down and see the GU, the 4J swap, and the camp trailer, if you want to come down, say g'day, grab a sticker or something like that, I'll be at their open day. I'll leave some information in the description below. But 2nd of September, I'll be there. So hopefully I can see you guys there as well. But anyway, I'm gonna go inside. I'm super pumped that we got the GQ fixed today. I'm very excited for the build. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. So I'll catch you later. See ya.